Hello and welcome to Will I Run for President by Willis. I am Willis, your host. So let me just first start off. We're going to change the way that we do this podcast a little bit. So let me just kind of break it down, how it's going to work from moving here on forward. When I go ahead and see that a bill has been voted on, I will add that to my list of bills to cover for the week. If I have once it hits the House anyways, so like once the House votes on it, I'll give it a mention and we're actually going to sit here and let congress.gov read the bill to us. Uh if it doesn't break, probably at like a 2 times speed, and then like if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, you can just adjust uh the speed that you're listening to the video at to meet how fast you want to read it out to you. But then what I'm also going to be doing, because I am recording, as you can see, on Wednesday the 15th, down here in the corner, um, since that is happening, I will also be going to this little link right here, bills to be considered. And this is all the bills they're supposed to talk and discuss about this week. Um, with that being said, there are some of these that have not actually made it to a vote. So they will be covered next week. And I have a running document to just keep me kind of informed on that decision. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. We're going to start with the lowest bill, moving to the highest bill, and that's how we're kind of going to keep it each week. Keep in mind the way that this works is when they enter a bill, it'll be HR and then whatever the bill number is going up. So the lower the bill number, the older the bill is as far as introduction time frame. So we're going to start with the first one here on HR 23, and we are just going to let the system read this to us. Let me get this set up here.
There are 3 versions. Text available as XML/HTML, XML/HTML, new window, 21 kilobytes, TXT, 16 kilobytes, PDF, 207 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, placed on calendar Senate, January 13, 2025. Calendar number 3. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 23. To impose sanctions with respect to the International Criminal Court engaged in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person of the United States and its allies. In the Senate of the United States. January 9, 2025. Received. Read the first time. January 13, 2025. Read the second time, and placed on the calendar. ANACT. To impose sanctions with respect to the International Criminal Court engaged in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person of the United States and its allies. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act. SEC. 2. Findings. Congress finds the following. 1. The United States and Israel are not parties to the Rome Statute or members of the International Criminal Court, ICC, and therefore the ICC has no legitimacy or jurisdiction over the United States or Israel. 2. On May 20, 2024, the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, announced arrest warrant applications for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant and should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. 3. On November 21, 2024, the ICC's pretrial chamber issued warrants for the arrest of Netanyahu and Gallant, which should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. 4. The Bipartisan American Service Members Protection Act was enacted in 2002 to protect United States military personnel, United States officials, and officials and military personnel of certain allied countries against criminal prosecution by an international criminal court to which the United States is not party, stating, in addition to exposing members of the armed forces of the United States to the risk of international criminal prosecution, the Rome Statute creates a risk that the President and other senior elected and appointed officials of the United States government may be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court. 5. The ICC's actions against Israel, including the preliminary examination and investigation of Israel and issuance of arrest warrants against Israeli officials, are illegitimate and baseless and create a damaging precedent that threatens the United States, Israel, and all United States partners who have not consented to the ICC's jurisdiction. 6. The United States must oppose any action by the ICC against the United States, Israel, or any other ally of the United States that has not consented to ICC jurisdiction or is not a state party to the Rome Statute of the ICC. SEC. 3. Sanctions with respect to the International Criminal Court. A. In general not later than 60 days after the date of enactment of this act, and on an ongoing basis thereafter, if the International Criminal Court is engaging in any attempt to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person, the President shall impose 1. The sanctions described in subsection B, with respect to any foreign person the President determines A. Has directly engaged in or otherwise aided any effort by the International Criminal Court to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute a protected person. B. Has materially assisted, sponsored, or provided financial, material, or technological support for, or goods or services to or in support of any effort by the International Criminal Court to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute a protected person. Or C. Is owned or controlled by, or is currently acting or purports to have acted, directly or indirectly, for or on behalf of any person that directly engages in any effort by the International Criminal Court to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute a protected person. And 2. The sanctions described in subsection B. 2. With respect to the immediate family members of each foreign person who is subject to sanctions pursuant to paragraph 1. B. Sanctions described. The sanctions described in this subsection with respect to a foreign person described in subsection A are the following. 1. Property blocking. The President shall exercise all of the powers granted by the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1701 at sec, to the extent necessary to block and prohibit all transactions in all property and interests in property of any foreign person described in subsection A. 1. If such property and interests in property are in the United States, come within the United States, or come within the possession or control of a United States person. 2. Aliens inadmissible for visas, admission, or parole. A. Visas, admission, or parole in the case of an alien described in subsection A. The alien is I. Inadmissible to the United States. E. Ineligible to receive a visa or other documentation to enter the United States. And i.e., otherwise ineligible to be admitted or paroled into the United States or to receive any other benefit under the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1101 at sec. B. Current visas revoked. I. In general, the visa or other entry documentation of an alien described in subparagraph A shall be revoked, regardless of when such visa or other entry documentation was issued. E. Immediate effect of revocation under clause I shall take effect immediately. And the second, automatically cancel any other valid visa or entry documentation that is in the alien's possession. C. Implementation. Penalties. 1. Implementation. The President may exercise all authorities provided under Sections 203 and 205 of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1702 and 1704, to carry out this section. 2. Penalties. A person that violates, attempts to violate, conspires to violate, or causes a violation of this section or any regulation, license, or order issued to carry out this section shall be subject to the penalties set forth in subsections B and C of Section 206 of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, 50 U.S.C. 1705, to the same extent as a person that commits an unlawful act described in subsection A of that section. D. Notification to Congress not later than 10 days after any imposition of sanctions pursuant to subsection A. The President shall brief and provide written notification to the appropriate congressional committees regarding the imposition of sanctions that shall include 1. A description of the foreign person or persons subject to the imposition of such sanctions, including the foreign person's role at or relation to the International Criminal Court. 2. A description of any activity undertaken by such foreign person or persons in support of efforts to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person. And 3. The specific sanctions imposed on such foreign person or persons. E. Waiver. 1. In general, the President may, on a case-by-case basis and for periods not to exceed 90 days each, waive the application of sanctions imposed or maintained with respect to a foreign person under this section if the President submits to the appropriate congressional committees before the waiver is to take effect a report that contains a determination of the President that the waiver is vital to the national security interests of the United States. 2. Contains each report required by paragraph 1, with respect to a waiver of the application of sanctions imposed or maintained with respect to a foreign person under this section, or the renewal of such a waiver, shall include A. A specific and detailed rationale for the determination that the waiver is vital to the national security interests of the United States. B. A description of the activity that resulted in the foreign person being subject to sanctions. C. A detailed description and list of actions the United States has taken to stop the International Criminal Court from engaging in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute all protected persons. And D. A detailed description and list of actions the International Criminal Court has taken to permanently close, withdraw, end, or otherwise terminate any preliminary examination, investigation, or any other effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute all protected persons. 3. Form each report required by paragraph 1, shall be submitted in unclassified form but may include a classified annex. If special rule, the President may terminate the sanctions with respect to the foreign persons described in subsection A if the President certifies in writing to the appropriate congressional committees that the International Criminal Court 1. Has ceased engaging in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute all protected persons. And 2. Has permanently closed, withdrawn, ended, and otherwise terminated any preliminary examination, investigation, or any other effort by the International Criminal Court to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute all protected persons. SEC. 4. Rescission of funds for International Criminal Court. Share this. A. In general, effective on the date of the enactment of this act, any amounts appropriated for the International Criminal Court and available for obligation as of such date of enactment are hereby rescinded. B. Prohibition on future appropriations on and after the date of the enactment of this act. No appropriated funds may be used for the International Criminal Court. SEC. 5. Definitions. In this act. 1. Admitted alien. The terms admitted and alien have the meanings given those terms in Section 101 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1101. 2. Ally of the United States. The term ally of the United States means A. A government of a member country of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Or B. A government of a major non-NATO ally, as that term is defined by Section 2013, 7, of the American Service Members Protection Act, 22 U.S.C. 7432, 7. 3. Appropriate congressional committees. Define the term appropriate congressional committees means A. The Committee on Foreign Affairs, the Committee on Financial Services, and the Committee on the Judiciary of the House of Representatives. And B. The Committee on Foreign Relations, the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, and the Committee on the Judiciary of the Senate. 4. FOREIGN person. The term foreign person means a person that is not a United States person. 5. Immediate family member. The term immediate family member, with respect to a foreign person, means the spouse, parent, sibling, or adult child of the person. 6. International Criminal Court. Rome Statute. The terms International Criminal Court and Rome Statute have the meaning given those terms in Section 2013 of the American Service Members Protection Act, 22 U.S.C. 7432. 7. Protected person. The term protected person means A. Any United States person, unless the United States provides formal consent to International Criminal Court jurisdiction, and is a state party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, including I. Current or former members of the Armed Forces of the United States. E. Current or former elected or appointed officials of the United States government. And i.e., any other person currently or formerly employed by or working on behalf of the United States government. B. Any foreign person that is a citizen or lawful resident of an ally of the United States that has not consented to International Criminal Court jurisdiction or is not a state party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, including I. Current or former members of the Armed Forces of such ally of the United States. e. Current or former elected or appointed government officials of such ally of the United States. And i.e., any other person currently or formerly employed by or working on behalf of such a government. 8. United States person. The term United States person means a. An individual who is a United States citizen or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence to the United States. B. An entity organized under the laws of the United States or any jurisdiction within the United States, including a foreign branch of such an entity. Or C. Any person in the United States. Passed the House of Representatives January 9, 2025. Attest. Kevin F. McCumber. Clerk. Calendar number 3. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 23. ANACT. To impose sanctions with respect to the International Criminal Court engaged in any effort to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute any protected person of the United States and its allies. January 13, 2025. Read the second time and place on the calendar.
All right, so we all heard what that said. I agree with this bill. Uh, I believe that we should not be subject to the International Criminal Court, as us as American citizens have a right to due process and to be judged by our peers. The International Criminal Court isn't our peers. So I'm going to go ahead and say I agree with this one. That being said, the House also agreed to this one. I believe I can see the vote right here. Yeah, I'm not seeing the vote. I'll have to check on that one later. I know there's a way that I can see the vote and I can see who voted for what. I just don't remember exactly how off the top of my head right now. We're going to go ahead and move on to HR 28. See, the House did pass this one as well. We'll get to whether I agree with it or not later on. And we're going to see if we can get the reading to start a little bit later on, because we don't need to hear about the XML, HTL, new window, whatever the frick. This is just different ways you can view the bill. It's the same bill no matter which version you're looking at. It's just how it's presented. So we're just going to go ahead and continue along here and try to get this to read past all this jargon here.
There is one version of the bill. Text available as kilobytes. PD example, deleted, or 19th Congress First Session. Alliance with Title IX of such act in February 3rd, 2025. Mr. Stoib, for himself, Mr. Walbertman, Mr. Belirikis, Mr. Crenshaw, Mr. Gooden, Mr. Moiser, Mr. Joss, Mrs. Gerald, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Adderholt, Mr. Guest, Mr. Feenstra, Mr. Arrington of West Virginia, and Mr. Burles 1872 to provide that for purposes of determining compliance with Title IX of such act in athletics, sex shall be recognized based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act of 2025. SEC. 2. Amendment. Section 901 of the Education Amendments of 1972, 20 U.S.C. 1681, is amended by adding at the end the following. D. 1. It shall be a violation of subsection A for a recipient of federal financial assistance who operates, sponsors, or facilitates an athletic program or activity to permit a person whose sex is male to participate in an athletic program or activity that is designated for women or girls. 2. For the purposes of this subsection, sex shall be recognized based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. 3. For the purposes of this subsection, the term athletic programs and activities includes, but is not limited to, all programs or activities that are provided conditional upon participation with any athletic team. 4. Nothing in this subsection shall be construed to prohibit a recipient from permitting males to train or practice with an athletic program or activity that is designated for women or girls so long as no female is deprived of a roster spot on a team or sport, opportunity to participate in a practice or competition, scholarship, admission to an educational institution, or any other benefit that accompanies participating in the athletic program or activity. 5. The Comptroller General shall carry out a study to determine the meaning of the phrase any other benefit as used in paragraph 4, by looking at benefits to women or girls of participating in single-sex sports that would be lost by allowing males to participate. The study shall document the adverse psychological, developmental, participatory, and sociological results to girls of allowing males to compete, be members of a sports team, or participants in athletic programs that are designed for girls, including displacement or discouragement from sports participation, deprivation of a roster spot on a team or sport, loss of the opportunity to participate in a practice or competition, loss of a scholarship or scholarship opportunities, loss or displacement of admission to an educational institution, deprivation of the benefit of an environment free of hostility based on sexual assault or harassment, or loss of any other benefit that accompanies participating in the athletics program or activity. Further, the Comptroller General shall submit to the Committee on Education and Workforce of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions of the Senate a report that contains the results of such study.
All right, so my immediate reaction to this is I am fine with this bill. I do want to clarify a few points on my end. One, my issue with men and women's sports or sorry, not men, transgender women, because socially they should be seen as women. However, I do understand the difference chemically and physically in the body build structure between the two, and I get where it can be unfair. In the interest of fairness, I would agree to this bill. And that's as an athlete, well, as somebody who was a high school athlete of 3 different sports, uh, I definitely I can see the advantage versus disadvantage. So, yeah, that's why I would pass it, and I mean no disrespect to the transgender community, uh, when I say that I would pass this. It has to do with anatomy, and anatomy is a science-based thing that we can say fact or fiction on, and you know it's a fact that there is a physiological difference. Um, and I'm not saying that to put anyone down. I'm just saying it as the science shows it. Um, we're gonna move to HR 29, the Lake Riley Act. Now, this one did pass the House. Um, doesn't look like I need to really skip a whole lot here, and the skipping function wasn't really working great, so we are just going to let this one play, and I will be back once it's done.
There are 2 versions. Text available as XML/HTML. XML/HTML, new window, 15 kilobytes. TXT, 9 kilobytes. PDF, 112 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, engrossed in House, January 7, 2025. 119th Congress, First Session. H. R. 29. ANACT. To require the Secretary of Homeland Security to take into custody aliens who have been charged in the United States with theft, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Laken-Riley Act. SEC. 2. Detention of certain aliens who commit theft. Section 236, C, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1226, C, is amended. 1. In paragraph 1. A. In subparagraph C, by striking or B. In subparagraph D, by striking the comma at the end, and inserting, or, and C, by inserting after subparagraph D, the following. E. I, is inadmissible under paragraph 6, 6, C, or 7, of section 212, A, and E, is charged with, is arrested for, is convicted of, admits having committed, or admits committing acts which constitute the essential elements of any burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting offense. 2. By redesignating paragraph 2 as paragraph 4. And 3. By inserting after paragraph 1 the following. 2. Definition for purposes of paragraph 1. E. The terms burglary, theft, larceny, and shoplifting have the meaning given such terms in the jurisdiction where the acts occurred. 3. Detainer. The Secretary of Homeland Security shall issue a detainer for an alien described in paragraph 1. E. And, if the alien is not otherwise detained by federal, state, or local officials, shall effectively and expeditiously take custody of the alien. SEC. 3. Enforcement by Attorney General of a state. A. Inspection of applicants for admission. Section 235, B, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1225, B, is amended. 1. By redesignating paragraph 3 as paragraph 4. And 2. By inserting after paragraph 2 the following. 3. Enforcement by Attorney General of a state. The Attorney General of a state, or other authorized state officer, alleging a violation of the detention and removal requirements under paragraphs 1 or 2 that harms such state or its residents shall have standing to bring an action against the Secretary of Homeland Security on behalf of such state or the residents of such state in an appropriate district court of the United States to obtain appropriate injunctive relief. The court shall advance on the docket and expedite the disposition of a civil action filed under this paragraph to the greatest extent practicable. For purposes of this paragraph, a state or its residents shall be considered to have been harmed if the state or its residents experience harm, including financial harm in excess of $100. B. Apprehension and detention of aliens. Section 236 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1226, as amended by this act, is further amended. 1. In subsection E. A. By striking or release. And B. By striking grant, revocation, or denial and insert revocation or denial. And 2. By adding at the end the following. If enforcement by Attorney General of a state. The Attorney General of a state, or other authorized state officer, alleging an action or decision by the Attorney General or Secretary of Homeland Security under the section to release any alien or grant bond or parole to any alien that harms such state or its residents shall have standing to bring an action against the Attorney General or Secretary of Homeland Security on behalf of such state or the residents of such state in an appropriate district court of the United States to obtain appropriate injunctive relief. The court shall advance on the docket and expedite the disposition of a civil action filed under this subsection to the greatest extent practicable. For purposes of this subsection, a state or its residents shall be considered to have been harmed if the state or its residents experience harm, including financial harm in excess of $100. C. Penalty Section 243 of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1253, is amended by adding at the end the following. E. Enforcement by Attorney General of a state, the Attorney General of a state, or other authorized state officer, alleging a violation of the requirement to discontinue granting visas to citizens, subjects, nationals, and residents as described in subsection D. That harms such state or its residents shall have standing to bring an action against the Secretary of State on behalf of such state or the residents of such state in an appropriate district court of the United States to obtain appropriate injunctive relief. The court shall advance on the docket and expedite the disposition of a civil action filed under this subsection to the greatest extent practicable. For purposes of this subsection, a state or its residents shall be considered to have been harmed if the state or its residents experience harm, including financial harm in excess of $100. D. Certain classes of aliens Section 212, D. 5, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1182, D. 5, is amended. 1. By striking Attorney General each place it appears and inserting Secretary of Homeland Security. And 2. By adding at the end the following. C. The Attorney General of a state, or other authorized state officer, alleging a violation of the limitation under subparagraph A, that parole solely be granted on a case-by-case basis, and solely for urgent humanitarian reasons or a significant public benefit, that harms such state or its residents shall have standing to bring an action against the Secretary of Homeland Security on behalf of such state or the residents of such state in an appropriate district court of the United States to obtain appropriate injunctive relief. The court shall advance on the docket and expedite the disposition of a civil action filed under this subparagraph to the greatest extent practicable. For purposes of this subparagraph, a state or its residents shall be considered to have been harmed if the state or its residents experience harm, including financial harm in excess of $100. E. Detention Section 241, A, 2, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1231, A, 2, is amended. 1. By striking during the removal period and inserting the following. A. In general during the removal period. And 2. By adding at the end the following. B. Enforcement by Attorney General of a state, the Attorney General of a state, or other authorized state officer, alleging a violation of the detention requirement under subparagraph A, that harms such state or its residents shall have standing to bring an action against the Secretary of Homeland Security on behalf of such state or the residents of such state in an appropriate district court of the United States to obtain appropriate injunctive relief. The court shall advance on the docket and expedite the disposition of a civil action filed under this subparagraph to the greatest extent practicable. For purposes of this subparagraph, a state or its residents shall be considered to have been harmed if the state or its residents experience harm, including financial harm in excess of $100. If, limit on injunctive relief Section 242, if, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, 8 U.S.C. 1252, if, is amended by adding at the end following. 3. Certain actions paragraph 1 shall not apply to an action brought pursuant to Section 235, B, 3, subsections, E, or, if, of Section 236, or Section 241, A, 2, B. Passed the House of Representatives January 7, 2025. Attest. Clerk. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 29. ANACT. To require the Secretary of Homeland Security to take into custody aliens who have been charged in the United States with theft, and for other purposes.
So, this bill, I know there's some people out there that are going to call it racist. I'm trying to look at this with the most amount of common sense possible, and I try to look at this in a, you know, accountability type mind frame. And this is where I'm at with it. Do I want immigrants to come to this country? Yes. We need it due to population issues, and it leads to a booming economy. Do I want them to come here legally? Yes. I wish they would come here legally. It would be easier on all of us. Then we don't got to even have these debates. Do I want them to be deported if they break a law before becoming a citizen? Yes. Now, I do need to point out that I would love for our immigration system to actually be fixed, and I do recognize that as part of the problem. But I will say I would sign this bill or vote yes on this bill. Um, but I do so looking at the potential good that this bill could do. My hope is that this bill is not abused. That being said, yes, pass this bill just like the House did. Uh, you know, I agree with the House in this one. Let's move on over here to H.R. 152, Federal Disaster Assistance Coordination Act. Let's go ahead and start this.
There are two versions. Text available as XML/HTML. XML/HTML, new window, 8 kilobytes. TXT, 6 kilobytes. PDF, 107 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, engrossed in House, January 13, 2025. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 152. ANACT. To amend the Disaster Recovery Reform Act of 2018 to develop a study regarding streamlining and consolidating information collection and preliminary damage assessments, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as a Federal Disaster Assistance Coordination Act. SEC. 2. Study to streamline and consolidate information collection and preliminary damage assessments. A. In general, Section 1223 of the Disaster Recovery Reform Act of 2018, Public Law 115 to 254, is amended to read as follows. SEC. 1223. Study to streamline and consolidate information collection and preliminary damage assessments. A. Information collection not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this section. The Administrator, in coordination with the Small Business Administration, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Disaster Assistance Working Group of the Council of the Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency, and other appropriate agencies, shall 1. Conduct a study and develop a plan, consistent with law, under which the collection of information from disaster assistance applicants and grantees will be modified, streamlined, expedited, efficient, flexible, consolidated, and simplified to be less burdensome, duplicative, and time-consuming for applicants and grantees. And 2. Develop a plan for the regular collection and reporting of information on federal disaster assistance awarded, including the establishment and maintenance of a website for presenting the information to the public. B. Preliminary damage assessments not later than 2 years after the date of enactment of this section. The Administrator, in consultation with the Council of the Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency, shall convene a working group on a regular basis with the Secretary of Labor, the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Administrator of the Small Business Administration, the Secretary of Transportation, the Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Economic Development, and other appropriate agencies as the Administrator considers necessary. 2. 1. Identify and describe the potential areas of duplication or fragmentation in preliminary damage assessments after disaster declarations. 2. Determine the applicability of having one federal agency make the assessments for all agencies. And 3. Identify potential emerging technologies, such as unmanned aircraft systems, consistent with the requirements established in the FEMA Accountability, Modernization, and Transparency Act of 2017, 42 U.S.C. 5121 Note, to expedite the administration of preliminary damage assessments. C. Comprehensive report. The Administrator shall submit one comprehensive report that comprises the plans developed under subsections A.1 and A.2, and a report of the findings of the working group convened under subsection B, which may include recommendations, to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure of the House of Representatives and the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs of the Senate. D. Public availability. The comprehensive report developed under subsection C shall be made available to the public and posted on the website of the Federal Emergency Management Agency. 1. In pre-compressed, easily downloadable versions that are made available in all appropriate formats. And 2. In machine-readable format, if applicable. E. Sources of information in preparing the comprehensive report, any publication, database, or web-based resource, and any information compiled by any government agency, non-governmental organization, or other entity that is made available may be used. If briefing not later than 180 days after submission of the comprehensive report, the Administrator of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or a designee, and a member of the Council of the Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency, or a designee, shall brief, upon request, the appropriate congressional committees on the findings and any recommendations made in the comprehensive report. B. Technical amendment. The item relating to Section 1223 in the Table of Contents of the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, Public Law 115 to 254, is amended to read as follows. Secretary 1223. Study to streamline and consolidate information collection and preliminary damage assessments. Passed the House of Representatives January 13, 2025. Attest. Clerk. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 152. ANACT. To amend the Disaster Recovery Reform Act of 2018 to develop a study regarding streamlining and consolidating information collection and preliminary damage assessments, and for other purposes.
So, this bill is essentially just a disaster relief bill, and stuff in regards to that. I agree. I agree with this bill. Pass it. I mean, it's not that hard to have human decency. Pass the bill. Let's go to H.R. 153. This one also passed the House. Let's go ahead and give it a listen.
There is one version of the bill. Text available as XML/HTML. XML/HTML, new window, 12 kilobytes. TXT, 8 kilobytes. PDF, 232 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, introduced in House, January 3, 2025. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 153. To provide for an online repository for certain reporting requirements for recipients of federal disaster assistance, and for other purposes. In the House of Representatives. January 3, 2025. Mr. Ezell introduced the following bill, which was referred to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, and in addition to the Committees on Small Business and Financial Services, for a period to be subsequently determined by the Speaker, in each case for consideration of such provisions as fall within the jurisdiction of the committee concerned. A bill. To provide for an online repository for certain reporting requirements for recipients of federal disaster assistance, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Post-Disaster Assistance Online Accountability Act. SEC. 2. Subpage for transparency of disaster assistance. A. Establishment of repository for reporting requirements. The Director of the Office of Management and Budget, in consultation with the Secretary of the Treasury and the head of each covered federal agency, shall establish a subpage within the website established under Section 2 of the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act of 2006, 31 U.S.C. 6101 Note, to publish the information required to be made available to the public under this section. B. Submission of information by federal agencies not later than 30 days after the end of a calendar quarter. Each covered federal agency that made disaster assistance available to an eligible recipient during such quarter shall, in coordination with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, make available to the public on the subpage established under subsection A. The information described in subsection C. And ensure that any data asset of the agency is machine readable. C. Information required. The information described in this subsection is, with respect to disaster assistance provided by the covered federal agency. 1. The total amount of disaster assistance provided by the agency during such quarter. 2. The amount of disaster assistance provided by the agency that was expended or obligated to projects or activities. And 3. A detailed list of all projects or activities for which disaster assistance disbursed by the agency was expended, obligated, or used, including A. The name of the project or activity. B. A description of the project or activity. C. An evaluation of the completion status of the project or activity. D. Any award identification number assigned to the project. E. The catalog for disaster assistance number assigned by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. F. The location of the project, including ZIP codes. And G. Any reporting requirement information being collected by a covered federal agency with respect to that agency's disaster assistance. D. Guidance. Each covered federal agency, in coordination with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget and the Secretary of the Treasury, shall issue such guidance as is necessary to meet the requirements of this Act. E. Agreement with private entity. The Director, if necessary for purposes of transparency, may enter into an agreement with a private entity, including a nonprofit organization, to develop the subpage required under this section. SEC. 3. Definitions. In this Act, the following definitions apply. 1. Covered federal agency. The term covered federal agency means A. Any agency providing assistance under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, 42 U.S.C. 5121 as Sec. B. The Small Business Administration. And C. The Department of Housing and Urban Development. 2. Disaster assistance. The term disaster assistance means any funds that are made available by the federal government in response to a specified natural disaster, including A. Any assistance provided by the administrator of the Small Business Administration as a result of a disaster declared under Section 7, B, of the Small Business Act, 15 U.S.C. 636, B. B. Any assistance provided by the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for I. Activities authorized under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, 42 U.S.C. 5301 as Sec, related to disaster relief, long-term recovery, restoration of infrastructure and housing, and economic revitalization in the most impacted and distressed areas resulting from a major disaster declared pursuant to the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, 42 U.S.C. 5121 as Sec. And E. Flood insurance coverage provided under the National Flood Insurance Program pursuant to the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968, 42 U.S.C. 4001 as Sec. And C. Any assistance provided under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, 42 U.S.C. 5121 as Sec. 3. Eligible recipient. The term eligible recipient A. Means any entity that receives disaster assistance directly from the federal government, including disaster assistance received through grant, loan, or contract, other than an individual. And B. Includes a state that receives disaster assistance. 4. Specified natural disaster. The term specified natural disaster means A. A fire on public or private forest land or grassland described in Section 420 of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, 42 U.S.C. 5187. B. A major disaster declared by the President under Section 401 of such Act, 42 U.S.C. 5170. C. An emergency declared by the President under Section 501 of such Act, 42 U.S.C. 5191. And D. Any other natural disaster for which a disaster declaration is made by the federal government.
All right, just another disaster relief type bill. I would pass this just same as the House did. Um, you know, I'm glad to see that there's bills going through to help people, because that's what we should be doing. We should be helping our people. All right, we are going to go ahead and move on to HR 189, Securities and Exchange Commission Real Estate Leasing Authority Revocation Act. God, that was a mouthful. Yeah, so this bill really short, so this should be nice, short and sweet. Let's get into it.
There are two versions. Text available as XML/HTML. XML/HTML, new window, 5 kilobytes. TXT, 4 kilobytes. PDF, 105 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, engrossed in House, January 13, 2025. 119th Congress, First Session. H.R. 189. ANACT. To amend Title 40, United States Code, to eliminate the leasing authority of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Securities and Exchange Commission Real Estate Leasing Authority Revocation Act. SEC. 2. Leasing of space for Securities and Exchange Commission. A. In general, Section 3304 of Title 40, United States Code, is amended by adding at the end the following. E. Leasing of space for Securities and Exchange Commission notwithstanding any other provision of law, on, and after the date of enactment of this subsection, the Securities and Exchange Commission may not lease general purpose office space. The administrator may lease such space for the Securities and Exchange Commission under Section 585 and this chapter. B. Limitation on statutory construction. The amendment made by subsection A may not be construed to invalidate or otherwise affect a lease entered into by the Securities and Exchange Commission before the date of enactment of this act. SEC. 3. Independent leasing authorities. A. In general, the Comptroller General of the United States shall submit to the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure of the House of Representatives, the Committee on Environment and Public Works of the Senate, and the Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs of the Senate a report on the review described in subsection B. B. Review the Controller General shall complete a review under which the Controller General shall update the 2016 report of the Controller General, GAO-16-648, with a specific focus on the following. 1. Updating the information included in Appendix the 2nd. Federal entities that reported having independent leasing authority for domestic offices and warehouses of such report. Share this. 2. Determining to what extent federal entities with independent leasing authorities have had such authorities rescinded or amended and the number and amount of office and warehouse space such entities lease. 3. Determining to what extent have agencies with independent leasing authority utilized the General Services Administration for leasing, including utilization of delegation of authority. 4. Identifying progress made on implementing the recommendations in such report. Pass the House of Representatives January 13, 2025. Attest. Clerk. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 189. ANACT. To amend Title 40, United States Code, to eliminate the leasing authority of the Securities and Exchange Commission, and for other purposes.
Um, you know, I'm not really sure on this bill. I would probably have to talk this over with some other people to give a full answer. Um, However, on upon first glance, I think I would have to go ahead and pass it with the House. Um, that's kind of where I'm sitting with it. I'd probably pass it with the House. And we're gonna move on to 192, which is Amtrak Executive Bonus Disclosure Act. This is a really short act. Just get through it real quick.
There are two versions. Text available as XML/HTML. XML/HTML, new window, 3 kilobytes. TXT, 2 kilobytes. PDF, 101 kilobytes. Formatting necessary for an accurate reading of this legislative text may be missing or may be shown by tags, for example, deleted, or bold, or may be missing from TXT display. Shown here, engrossed in House, January 13, 2025. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 192. ANACT. To amend Title 49, United States Code, to require Amtrak to include information on base pay and bonus compensation of certain Amtrak executives, and for other purposes. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Section 1. Short title. This act may be cited as the Amtrak Executive Bonus Disclosure Act. SEC. 2. Amtrak Reports and Audits. Section 24,315, A, of Title 49, United States Code, is amended. 1. By inserting, and make available to the public on the website of Amtrak, after submit to Congress. And 2. By striking paragraph 2, and inserting the following. Share this. 2. Provide the annual base pay and any bonus compensation paid to a member of the executive leadership team, including the chief executive officer, president, and officers, of Amtrak, including the criteria and metrics used to determine any such bonus compensation. And pass the House of Representatives January 13, 2025. Attest. Clerk. 119th Congress First Session. H. R. 192. ANACT. To amend Title 49, United States Code, to require Amtrak to include information on base pay and bonus compensation of certain Amtrak executives, and for other purposes.
All right, so in my opinion, since you know, this is a rough one because I think you should have a certain right to privacy, and you shouldn't have to necessarily disclose what your bonus is publicly. Definitely should have to tell the IRS what your bonus is, um, for proper taxing purposes. But mm, you know, I don't think they should have to. I would have voted no. The House voted yes. Um, Sometimes it's just how it's gonna lie, because I'm not always gonna agree with the House decision. The House decision here, I disagree with. So that is it for bills this week so far. Um, as you can see, there are a few bills that there was not that weren't discussed that are on here. So we still have 188 Amtrak Transparency and Accountability for Passengers and Taxpayers Act. There's still HR 164 Power Act of 2025. HR 144 Tennessee Valley Authority Salary Transparency Act. HR 33 United States Taiwan Expedited Double Tax Relief Act. And HR 30 Preventing Violence Against Women by Illegal Aliens Act. So, those, if they actually make it to a vote anytime in the rest of this week, will be covered in next week's episode. I record on either Wednesday or Thursday, normally, depending on my schedule. If there is absolutely no time on those days, I find a way to make it work. And we're just going to keep doing our best. At this point in the show, what I would like to start doing is reading questions from audience members, whether you listen on YouTube or Spotify, or even if you just ask questions of me uh, on TikTok, you know? Um, yeah. Ask questions. I will address them here publicly because, honestly, I need to know what you guys care about. I need to know the issues that you want to stand on as American citizens. I want to be more in touch than how politicians have been in the past. So please come back next week. Would love to have you guys. Thank you. And this is the show.